Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi. We'd like to welcome you all to session today. We're going to have a group of speakers who are going to present. Um, my name is Oasis Salah. Thank you all for attending our event today. يعطيكم العافية على حضوركم. Today we'll be talking about Water and Transportation Day. We have a range of speakers that are both national and international entities. We have engineer Fatima Al-Khayyat, who's representing the Ministry of Transport. Mr. representing Transport. Dr. Simon Lucas from the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office of the United Kingdom. And Dr. Khalid Mahmoud, who is from Qatar Foundation, Japan. So if we can call up on Fatima Al-Khayyat to begin. Thank you.
Good evening, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Engineering Fatima Al-Khayyat, and today I am participating as a delegate of the State of Qatar, and I am participating and representing Ministry of Transport. I am here to represent the Ministry of Transport, and today I will talk about our project that is related to climate change. The National Strategy for Environment and Climate Change. In general, protecting the environment and supporting sustainable development are the forefront of Qatar priorities. As one of the first countries to ratify the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in 1996, Qatar has long-standing commitment to addressing global environmental challenges. Qatar is an active partner in an international community campaign to confront the climate crisis. The Ministry of Transport in the State of Qatar plays a major and effective role in the areas of sustainable development and the preservation of the environment through transportation projects such as electrical vehicle transition strategy, FIFA World Cup transportation, running a clean diesel fuel policy, and port equipment eco-friendly and railway technology. Electrical vehicle transition strategy. Our aim for this project is to achieve by 2030 100% of electric bus and 100% of school electric bus. The electric bus assembly plant is operating at full capacity. The public bus infrastructure program, the main objective of this project is to achieve an integration between public and transit system, is to support the transit operation during FIFA World Cup, is to enhance Qatar's position as a leading country in using eco-friendly electrical vehicle, to reduce the carbon emission of fossil fuel vehicles, and to improve the overall air and climate quality in Qatar. This last program supports the strategy of switching to clean energy, which will include 8 main bus stations, 4 bus depots, 4 sites of park and ride, and a ferry terminals. As we can see, the pictures are shown what are mentioned in the strategy. One of our largest depot is opened recently in Doha. It's located in Lusail. It is one of our first depot, which is relying on solar power. It has around 478 bus total the capacity, and it has also 248 electrical charging equipment, and it also have 11,000 PV solar panels. The total capacity of this bus depot is morely around 400,000 meters square. I can that the Lucille bus won recently Guinness World Record of having the first in the Middle East that is relying on solar power. It is the largest electrical bus depot with a capacity of 478 buses. Our project called Sila in Arabic means to stay together. Is an app, and it is integrated public transport network. Sila offers sustainable and environmentally friendly public transport system which reduce air pollution, carbon footprint, and energy use. The Sila's application is usually eco-friendly and organic. The main purpose of this project is to plan your journey from destination A to destination B. This is the largest e-bus operation in the history of a sport tournament. As you know that we are holding the World Cup 2022, and it will be around next week. And as you know that all the buses we're using on the FIFA World Cup will be electric, and we are estimated nearly around transferring 40,000 to 50,000 people per day. One of our major objectives and the project in my ministry is running Euro 5 diesel regulation. And this project has sustainable advantages as reducing the greenhouse gases, vehicle exhausted and harmful carbon emission, deploying a clean fuel technology and electric power, improving bus and truck specification, the best standard specification and advanced technology. This policy applies the buses and the trucks that will be imported to Qatar, starting with the models manufactured for 2023. Doha Metro and Tram, it is one of the largest projects in my country. All the tram and the metros are fully electrical, and so zero emissions, and it's an eco-friendly. Last slide, I will be talking about the Qatar, which is Hamad Port. Hamad Port, it is a container terminal 2, has been provide the latest technology and equipment that preserve the environment and sustainability. As we can see that all the facilities and equipment, even the tractor and the RTG, all of these are fully operated by electrical power. So we can conclude that there will be zero emissions, and it will be eco-friendly equipment. The previous slide are a preview of the MOT project of our operations, which is related to climate change. Allow me to invite you to join us in our section to view the electric bus models and videos related to the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fatima, for giving us an insight on the sustainable transportations in Qatar. We'd like to call on our next speaker, Mr. Mohsen Al-Sheikh, representing Hamad International Airport.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to represent Matar Hamid International Airport, and today's subject will be about Matar sustainability building and infrastructure of the airport. So we'll go to the slide and contents. So we're going to discuss. I don't know if the sound's clear or not. So we're going to discuss about the Matar, and also we're going to highlight some of the awards, and also we're going to discuss about the airport capacity. Hello. So also we're going to discuss about why sustainability is important to us, and sustainability achievement, and how the data which is we can drive to the successful of the smart technologies. So here is a couple of slides. This is to introduce you the Matar. Matar is it is a company registered names under Qatar subsidiaries. We have more than 10 subsidiaries inside the Matar, and Matar is one who's looking after all environmental issues inside the airport. So environmental teams are a major player to get some of those achievements of the airport. So, for example, we have Matar Hamid International Airport is recognized by Skytrax and achieved the best airport in the world in 2021. And this is a continued journey for the airport. Also, Matar Hamid International Airport, it is not actually considered as a best airport for the world, but also working. Matar Hamid International Airport does not only strive to be best airport for the world, but also the best airport for the world. So we're going to talk about some of the achievement of Matar Hamid International Airport. Also, part of the journey of Matar Hamid, collaborating with the FIFA World Cup, we also offset carbon for the whole passengers in the airport for this year's. So this is a couple of awards which is Matar Hamid have. One of the award which is everybody knows that Matar Hamid recognized as the best airport in the Middle East, and also the best airport in the world, best airport of 20 to 35 million passengers, and also best airport for staff in the Middle East, best airport for they get the best airport for the COVID-19 airport excellency, and best airport of cleaning in the Middle East. And also Matar Hamid recognized as a 5-star COVID airport, COVID-19 airport. And in addition, Matar Hamid holding ISO of 22301 and also 5001. One of the latest update, Matar Hamid International Airport this year's and past month achieved ISO 14000 with 0 non-conformity and 0 observation. And also continuous journey to hold the ACI carbon accreditation for level 3. This is a couple of information which is about the airport from the size perspective and number of passenger, and this one you can go through. Here also we can talk a little bit about the facility of the airport. We have a passenger terminal complex. We have also cargo facility. We have technical hangars, and we have Qatar Airways Operations Center. And also we have catering facility, and we have wastewater treatment plant. So let's discuss a little bit about why sustainability is important to us. As you know that Matar Hamid International was committed to support Qatar vision, to delivering sustainable development for its people and the planet. Also, Matar Hamid working to reduce the greenhouse gases continuously, and also growing that, also looking after the demand, huge demand, which is after the expansion of the airport. So we are looking to monitor that demand and start continuous improvement of the roadmap of the airport. I'm going to discuss a little bit about roadmap end of this presentation. What exactly is roadmap of the green, reducing the greenhouse gases? So also this is one of the ambitions of Matar Hamad. Always we are mentioning around the world that Matar Hamad International Airport has ambitions to be the best airport in the world, and also best airport for the world. So we have this, some of this optimization, some of those optimization project or saving, and also reducing the carbon inside the airport. Let's highlight some of them. Like for example, we have a chiller optimization for aircraft hangars, and also we have chiller optimization for the major COPs unit inside the airport. And also we have advanced air quality station inside the airport. Also we have a project of leading LED replacement for the airport. We have also smart metering system, which is I'm going to also talk about this one. And also we have wastewater treatment plant, which is we are almost zero discharge to the sea. And all waste, all sewage waste, which is coming to the airport are treated and it's used for irrigation inside the airport. So here the things about something about the optimization. So from this for the COP optimization aircraft maintenance hangars, we reduce almost 3,700 tons per year, and I think so this is good number for the airport. Also, if you go to the COP, we reduce almost 12,300 tons per year from the carbon emission. So we'll continue on next slide. So here is our ambient air quality station. Those are gases which is we are measuring: NOx, SOx, and ozone, CO, methane, non-methane, and PM10, PM2.5, and also all type of climate change meteorology data like wind speed, wind direction, and humidity. So we are getting the data from the station to the central unit. Then we are reporting this data to the Ministry of Environment and also to the public. So this is a good example of the changing LED light. So we have inside the airport apron flood light, which is it is recommended by Safety and Aviation. Matar Hamad International Airport try to get the ways to replacing this light to go with LED, which is actually done a very huge saving from that price. So we want like to give this example to the airport to use the similar light, LED light, which is give that high flux light. So we save almost, we reduce almost 1,180 tons per year from carbon. So we'll continue driving to the airport. We have this new project we call Smart Metering Project. Actually, this smart metering project is connected with the Matar roadmap, which is we are working on it. So smart metering project, it is a system which is put it for all stakeholders that we are measuring and putting a KPI as per Matar Hamad International Airport commitment to the world to reduce 30% of the carbon by 2030. So we are developing a smart metering for the water and electrical that diversing the system to be one of the best smart system in the world. And this smart system is connected with the BMS system, and it can be integrated with any system. It's a very advanced smart metering project. We are developing it in the airport. So by this smart metering system, we can track the live data in daily basis by connecting our system to our BMS and finding the data in real time. And also we we can adjust and put KPI for every stakeholders. You know, we have almost 10 stakeholders inside the airport. So every stakeholder we can have for him a smart metering, and we can plug it to our system, and we're getting the data from that one, and start putting a KPI to reduce 5% every year until we achieve our target by 2030. That's all from Hamad International Airport. I think so. Thank you very much. And I think so there's a video, if you can share it for the airport. I don't know if it's the video. So this is our new expansion area in the airport, which is just announced past week. So we are happy that this area completely sustainable, existing of the sunlight, huge, maybe almost 80% existing of sunlight, and completely green area, and which is give a good feedback for the passengers. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you, Mohsen al-Sheikh, for giving us a fruitful insight on the efforts of Hamad International Airport and sustainability. We'd like to call on Dr. Simon Lucas, representing the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office of the United Kingdom.
Hello, I'm Simon Lucas from the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, and I cover the Middle East and North Africa region. But for a long time, when I was a researcher, I worked on UK energy policy and have worked on transport for quite a while. And I'll just learn how to use the clicker. Right. So which one's next? That one. Okay, yeah, lovely. Great. So what I'd like to do very quickly today, and then if you have any questions, happy to answer, is take you a little bit about where transport sits within the UK's overall efforts to decarbonise, look a little bit about what the policies are and what the themes are, then look at one little case study around how the UK has incentivised the adoption of electric vehicles and how that's going, what we've learned from that. And then finally, something at the end. We've just finished some research which isn't just on UK policies. It looks at 10 different policies around the world about what are the lessons that we've learned about how to incentivise change, because many things in this field aren't just about government action or private sector action. They're also about societal responses, economics. They bring in a whole load of over things. But anyway, just to situate transport within the overall efforts in the UK, the UK had a Climate Change Act from 2008 that mandated the UK to reduce significantly its emissions by 2050. That Act also established an independent climate change committee that holds the government to account for staying on track. In 2019, that 80% reduction was increased to carbon neutrality by 2050. And then a year later, we brought forward a emissions reductions target of 68% from 1990 levels by the year 2030. So you can see there's been a policy in the UK of making change over an extended period that's really been driving the changes. And a lot of policies sit underneath that for incentivising investments in renewable energy, reducing consumption and improving efficiency, industrial processes, domestic heating load, lots of different areas it's covered, and of course transport. But the important figure to look at is on the right. Whilst we were doing that, we haven't had a loss of GDP. In fact, GDP has grown significantly. So to answer the question, is sort of the energy transition and the growth, are they mutually incompatible? It seems in the UK it's not. Now, there's lots of complexity around that, but it's good news overall that you can grow your economy 75% by reducing emissions. But of course, transport is a very significant part of that picture. So globally, we know transport is the fastest growing emission sector. And people argue about how much emissions are from the transport sector, but it's somewhere between 10 and 17%. I used the highest figure, so there's some argument about how far we go back in the chain of the manufacture of all the things that go into it. But it's large, it's growing fast. And when I used to work in transport, there was a truism that if you start talking about transport, within 1 minute you talk about land transport, and within another minute you're talking about road transport. And that's because of the figures. If you look at the figures of where all the emissions are coming from, they're predominantly coming from domestic and light van use in the UK. So light industrial trucks and domestic car use and commercial car use. So clearly that's the segment that we really have to look at. And the forecasts are that their car use is going to increase. So how are we going to increase car use at the same time as reducing emissions? So you can see 50% cars, 30% commercial, and then everything else, the shipping, public transport, etc. Now, the important thing on transport that came along with the emissions evidence was also the costs of those emissions to the wider society. And that enabled the economists to get on board because they could also see that there were disbenefits to the transport industry. So that 50 billion a year of UK losses due to air pollution, to noise pollution, allowed us to have a discussion around, okay, it is going to cost money, we have to invest in this transition, but we should get savings to the wider economy. And that was very important in the discussions to make it publicly and economically acceptable. So at the end of the day, if the Ministry of Finance doesn't agree, you can't get the go-ahead. So very simply, this is the transport decarbonisation strategy. It's available. There's lots of detail behind this that I can't go into today. But basically, 3 big areas of change. Firstly, let's try and reduce that car consumption. If we can do that, that solves a big chunk of our problem. But we recognise that in almost every society, people really value the independence and the economic opportunities that having their own transport presents. So we're not going to stop it. But let's at least try to get more people, especially in urban areas, moving to active transport, walking, cycling, as it used to be known. Let's get more people to use public transport. But also let's look at how do we decarbonise that big chunk of commercial transport as well. And then finally, how do we get the international effort going as well? At the same time, we're also looking at what can we do to stimulate innovation? A lot of the changes that were being predicted back in 2010 when this was being prepared didn't exist. Now we know that electric vehicles are viable and are becoming increasingly competitive. So we had to predict where the technology was going to go and then invest in some of that technology. We also recognise that a central government response could only deal with some things. They could deal with standards, they could deal with national incentives, but they couldn't plan every city and every town and every rural area in the UK. So it's really important that we got local governments on board to say, you need to do your bit. We can't do your cycle lanes, we can't do your buses, we can't do your congestion zones. That has to be locally led. So it's really important to get them on board. And then looking more broadly, obviously the aviation industry, shipping, these are global issues, and therefore we need a global response where we collectively work together on those issues. So looking at electric vehicles, quite a few policy responses. I haven't listed everything, but the first and the biggest and probably the most important was to say 2030 we're not going to sell any new petrol or diesel cars in the UK. That's an enormous signal to every car manufacturer who wants to sell cars in the UK that they better have some electric cars ready by then, or some hydrogen fuel cell cars, or whatever the technology is, because you won't be able to sell. And the more confidence is built with the car companies around this transition, the faster they'll be investing in R&D, and that's exactly what has happened. It's rare now in the UK that anybody advertises a new non-electric car, for example, or at least a plug-in hybrid, or at least says this is incredibly fuel efficient. So it's part of the selling now that has to go up. Also incentives, especially at the start when capital costs were very high. How do you incentivize the first adopters? Because without the first adopters, you don't grow confidence. If you haven't got confidence, you haven't got uptake. You haven't got uptake, you haven't got charging points. And unless you get that break-even point where there's enough charging points to make people feel that they are going to be safe driving their electric vehicle and not be stranded, you're always going to have a public perception problem. To go along with that, we also needed to have a package of investment. A lot of that is with local governments or with the private sector. So we know that it's not the country's job to put all the electric vehicle charging points in, but we can improve incentives, we can get low-cost investment in and de-risk those investments. So a series of different investments, and with the costs of electric vehicles dropping, we've got this graph. So as you can see, quite a very, very significant increase from almost zero to quite a significant proportion, so that now 1 in 5 cars in the new cars bought in the UK have a plug. Now, that includes hybrids, so I don't want to pretend they're all pure electric, but that's an enormous shift in the perception of people about whether an electric vehicle can do the job that they need it to do, and it's really building confidence. So now there are over 1 million plug-in vehicles in the UK in total, 450,000 charging points, and it's predicted that electric vehicles versus internal combustion engine vehicles will be at least price parity by 2025. And that's really significant because the cost premium has been a significant disincentive for people, and also people saying, well, it's only the rich people that can afford to buy electric. I have to buy an old, inefficient car because I don't have that capital, and it helps get the equity issues out of the way. In the meantime, many of you will be aware there are a lot of different initiatives going on that the UK is co-sponsoring with the US, with others around electric vehicles, because there is a global standard issue. Global manufacturers need to be on board. Everybody needs to be speaking from the same hymn sheet if we're going to make this transition work. And particularly also the special needs of developing countries where transport infrastructure is poorer, the rollout of charging stations is going to be lower. In general, the vehicle density is lower. So a whole set of specific problems that developing countries have got around making this transition that needs direct support. So nobody is claiming that this is done. I'd say the cup is maybe half full and getting fuller, but we need to keep looking at the big challenges. The access map, for example, if you look at the north of Scotland, where population density is very low, hardly any charging points, how are you going to put those in when you need a cross-subsidy from somebody to pay for them, because they are not going to be economic? What are we going to do about the big trucks, the big buses? Are they going to go hydrogen? Are they going to go battery? We're still at a technology tipping point where it's really hard to tell which way we're going to go. There's increasing interest, I know from Qatar and others, what's the role of hydrogen in this? What hydrogen infrastructure do we need? Are we going to have filling stations that are hydrogen and electric plug-in points, or aren't we? And I don't think anybody has the answer, and I'm sure there'll be a variety of answers, but these are the challenges that we need to look at. And then the challenges remain. Policy is a big one. We still have challenges on the electric grid side, because if everybody changed to electric vehicles in the UK right now, the grid would collapse. They'll all get home in the evening, they'll plug them in, and there'll be a blackout. So there's a big challenge about how we supply the demand, especially because it's can be quite a peaky demand. We need to keep the policies very stable, because without that, we can't get the private sector to continue to make their investments and the public to continue to make their investments. Because remember, most of that investment is coming from individuals' own pockets. So their confidence is really important. And then we've got to monitor. As you can see, we're on a downward trajectory, but that trajectory has really got to accelerate. So the blue one is what would probably have happened anyway if we had no intervention. And the green one is the optimistic, let's get all the policies in place and let's really try and drive this transition as fast as we can. It's a little bit too early to say exactly where we are, because COVID stopped everybody traveling, and therefore we've got a blip in the data. So it's going to be very interesting getting the data in the next couple of years to see how things are working. Now, the final thing I wanted to cover very quickly is, this is a bit of research that I mentioned at the beginning around what have we learned about trying to incentivize behavioural change across sectors. And it looks at wind power in the UK, it looks at LEDs in India, lots of different approaches. And it challenges some of the sort of economist laws that some of us have grown up with around, should we make technology choices as government policy makers? And at some points, you just have to. You have to say electric vehicles now look like we need to do something specific about them, and that's making a technology choice. Second one, does it always raise costs if governments get involved? No, it doesn't have to. You can crowd in investment and reduce costs, and that's what we're seeing in the electric vehicle market. Markets that are risky cost a lot of money to invest in. Everybody knows this, so how can we manage those risks and help de-risk for the private sector? There's also the argument, well, just charge people more to fill up their cars. That's enough to provide the incentive to provide an electric vehicle. We know it's not. Behaviour change is not that simple. So you need to do more things and target specific things that you're going to do that will tip people over the edge. And then don't consider policies individually. The grid and the electric vehicle example is a very good one, where you need to think about those things together. And then one thing, as an engineer, I was always taught to optimize. And you iterate and iterate till you get the perfect solution. Policy isn't like that. You need to start doing the policy, see how it works, and adapt. So you have to be adaptive. The distributional issues I mentioned about who can buy an electric car, that's really important. If you introduce a policy that has the desired impact but disadvantages a sector of society, you will have people banging on your door. Fuel subsidies is the classic one, where everybody is very upset if you take fuel subsidies away, but what are you going to do if you don't do that in the long term? International markets will minimise costs. Yes, they will, but you've got to have some international regulation and standards so everybody's talking about the same things. Don't just look at cost and benefit analysis in the old way. Also look at the cost of the risk that you're going to avoid. And that part of economics that values the environment really needs to be brought in. I said at the beginning that the 50 billion in environmental costs and social costs for transport was really important in the discussions for us in the UK. And then don't pretend that the people modelling don't have their own views. There isn't a model in the world that isn't the product of the assumptions that went into designing it. So test them, use different models, talk to different people, because they will all have a slightly different take, and it's really important that you involve those and you know your own biases. The final thing is you've got to start somewhere. So start now, adjust. We know that the plan always looks simple on paper, but reality is a lot harder. But unless you start on the journey, you'll never start tackling the actual implementation challenges that come along. And that back in 2010, this decarbonisation in transport seemed to be incredibly ambitious. I wouldn't say it's all been perfect. Some of the subsidies and incentives haven't worked perfectly. There have been capture, there have been other things, but broadly, it's going in the right direction. So I hope that's a useful summary of where we've got to in the UK. As I say, quite happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Simon Lucas, for explaining the incentives the United Kingdom has towards sustainable transportation. I'd like to call on Dr. Khalid Mahmoud, representing Qatar Foundation Japan.
Good afternoon, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, I'm from Qatar Foundation in Qatar, not Japan, so just, all right. So this talk will hit onto the very important subject, which is the water quality and groundwater quality, especially in Qatar. That's including actually the treated, which is, so where again? This one? Yeah, so we'll hit on the impact of climate change on the groundwater quality, including the treated wastewater in Qatar. So that's a glimpse of the challenges that we have in Qatar. As we know, Qatar is part of the MENA region, and which is lots of drought. There is no water, so the precipitation in Qatar, especially in the latest few years, the precipitation was very low. We didn't have much of rain since 2017 until the last year, and that has impacted the ground water amount and also groundwater quality, so the depletion of the aquifer. That's coming with the starting 2017. The country has a blooming industrial agriculture activities starting 2017 onwards, and that has led to abstractions of a huge amount of ground water, which has also impacted on the amount of the groundwater available for the country, as well as the quality of the salinity and so on. So everybody knows the climate change. We are all experts on what climate change can do to the health of the human being, and the water is a part of the sector that's actually being affected by climate change. As we know that loss of the groundwater quality due to the less of the amount that has impacted the quality and increased the microbial diversity inside the aquifer, and increased also the contamination due to the anthropogenic effects due to abstraction of this groundwater. And that's also one of the impacts, as everybody knows, that I'm not going to spend too much on this one, but as you can see here in our region, there is always a very high increase over the global warming. The Middle East warming is even higher, and that's actually increased the heat wave duration. As you can see here, the heat wave duration goes up to 19 days at certain times, and we have actually also increased in the amplitude of the temperature, and of course that will impact the water, as we're gonna talk about it. Here is where the MENA region, and there is Qatar as positioned here as one of the lowest country that has available water, and as you can see here, the available storage capacity over years. This is up to 2019, but the trend is going up. And as you can see here, the availability of water is about 10 to 12 days as a secure water. And of course, the country is actually working and actually making more storage capacity for the country, just to kind of minimize the impact of the, say, if there is any issue happens to the desalination plants. So here, as you can see here, this is the ecosystem of the water production, and as we know that the majority of the water that's actually available especially in Qatar is from the desalination. And as you can see here, the water that's actually available in the aquifer as the distribution here in this table, because there have to be a balance between the supply and demand. And as you can see here, for example, the recharge of the aquifer from the rainfall is about 71.6 million meter cube per year, and that's actually give an average annual water balance is about 55 million meter cube per year. This is actually need to be improved. It needs to be actually at least the triple this amount need to be increased. So that's why the country has to move forward into further technologies to kind of secure the water resource. Here, as you can see here, the water resources, about almost 60% is coming from desalination, and this is amount this is where we have to work on the treated waste water to more of reuse of treated, so depend less on the desalinated water for the activities that actually grow, especially for agriculture activities. And as you can see here in the usage, the highest sector is the agriculture sector, is of about 30%. So the losses that actually we are facing is actually over about 10%. Is a little bit high, and this is actually the country has been working on reducing the losses and increase the ability to actually use more of the treated wastewater, as we can see here. So about 90% of groundwater abstraction have been for agriculture use since 2017 onwards, and about 8% for municipal and industrial purposes. This is, of course, has to go down very, like we have to reduce it like significantly and depend more on treated sewage effluent, because this is a massive amount that's been produced and some of them are not produced. For example, about 21% is actually discharged into lagoons of the TSE, and about another like 12% is to a lagoon, and 21% actually is deep injected in the aquifer. And the problem with the deep injection is that it's not economically feasible to recover. So the trend is now actually to avoid deep injection and move more into kind of storing the extra treated wastewater into lagoon can be used further. And that's pretty much, as you can see here, over the year. This is up to 2016, but the trend is going up. And as you can see here, the gray area in 2016 is about 60%. And now it's going to 26%, and the ambition of the country is to actually reduce it to zero. So there will be no discharge into the aquifer, so the TSE can be fully utilized, or discharge in the lagoon, because between the summer and the winter, the demand of the TSE actually reduced. So there is also always surplus in the winter season that discharge in the lagoons can be used in the summer. So to avoid any losses in the TSE. So these are the steps that's actually been taken either from the government sector or from the research side. For example, at Qatar Energy and Environment Research Institute, at Qatar Foundation, we are working in lots of R&D research to kind of try to improve the quality of the TSE, try to maximize the quality of the stored TSE so that can be reused, as well as there's always as I mentioned, to be used in the agriculture sector. Of course, in our regions, you cannot use it for human consumed vegetables and so on. So that's of vegetation. So all of the agriculture purposes that's used for using TSC is only for fooderies for animals or landscaping as well. And as you can see here, is about 33% total of total TSC has been used for agriculture sector. So also Qatar Cool, as one of the energy companies for district cooling, is now depending 100% on the treated sewage effluents. And the country have spent a lot of effort to kind of extend lots of infrastructure, like what has been done about like long transport lines, that kind of service the different areas in Qatar where the TSC can be utilized either for district cooling or for landscaping. And this is some of the news that's actually been used. And moving forward, this is the Qatar National Environment and Climate Change Strategy, being published in 2021. And the most important keys here is that we go into 60% reduction in groundwater extraction. And that's going to the Qatar national strategy as well. We're hoping that go even beyond that for Qatar national strategies, as well as the reduce the loss of the water to below 4%, and depend more into desalination from RO desalination rather than thermal desalination, because the majority of desalination in the country are thermal desalination. So the interest is actually to move is more to more eco-friendly desalination processes like the RO as well as the other advanced desalination processes. And of course, what is most important is to 100% recycling of the waste water. And of course, we have to adhere to a certain quality for the TSC, and these are the quality that's the targeted that we're working on. The most important quality part, either not the salinity but the sulfur content, because that's and boron content that actually impact the agriculture sector, as well as the pharmaceutical. That's actually tertiary treatment. Sometimes it cannot remove the pharmaceuticals. That's why we are working on advanced technologies actually to do this. One of the processes that we have in Kiri is to use advanced ozonation process, where you can remove majority or at least 98% of the pharmaceutical from the TSC, reducing them to the a lower limit. And we have actually a pilot system that's actually been demonstrated for ozonation in the one of the production area. So some of the research that we have here, that some of the pharmaceuticals here were able to, with ozonation, were able to remove almost 100% of those with the optimizing the ozone dose with the hydrogen peroxide. And that actually was a very effective process that actually being licensed and will be operated soon in the treated wastewater plant. This is a side activities that actually we're doing that's for monitoring the quality in the wastewater. So we are actually using the wastewater as a very precious data bank where we can know a lot of information from the human being activities and so on. Part of this, we are using wastewater epidemiology to monitor SARS-CoV-2 since 2020 until now, and we were able to actually help the Ministry of Public Health into kind of at least predict where are the spikes in there. So wastewater actually is a very precious resource that we're actually can be utilized for consumption as well as can be used for monitoring the human activities. Also, even during the World Cup, we were with the influx of about 1.5 million people that's coming to the country, starting actually this week. We will actually monitor the illicit drug consumption as well as any disease that actually could come to the country. And these activities will continue, and wastewater epidemiology is going to be a very effective tool, kind of put some controls onto the health impacts of human activities. And the last one is actually our colleagues are working with NASA to monitor the ground or map the ground aquifer for in the MENA region and in Qatar, and the video is self-explanatory. Can you move?
We see deserts expanding and the oceans are shrinking. There is no denying that our planet is undergoing rapid change. Since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, humans have been emitting larger and larger amounts of climate-warming gases. This in turn is causing the planet to warm. The results are ice sheets melting and sea levels rising, which causes shorelines to retreat, threaten our cities, and infringe on valuable reservoirs of water that lie below the desert surface. Increased pumping of groundwater actually accelerates sea level rise. Low-lying areas such as Florida and the Arabian Peninsula are particularly vulnerable, and so must we know. Once launched, OASIS will study the Earth's
Some issue with the
shrinking ice and aquifers. The constellation of satellites will bounce radio waves off the Earth's surface. OASIS will use these measurements to observe melting over Greenland and the aquifers under the deserts, and Antarctic ice thickness. OASIS, helping humanity prepare for a rapidly changing climate.
Yeah, so this is a very ambitious project between Qatar Foundation in Qatar and NASA to kind of map the ground water either in the entire region. That's the project is called OASIS, and hopefully that's going to be launched within the next year. And with that, thank you very much for your listening. Any question?
Thank you, Dr. Khalid Mahmoud, for explaining the impacts of climate change on groundwater quality. We'd like to open the floor for any questions towards any of the speakers.
Thank you, Professor Khalid. It was a very, very interesting presentation and very informative. So my question is actually on the groundwater, related to groundwater. So with the climate change, is there any study in Qatar what will be the impact on the groundwater? I know that this collaborative project is going on with NASA. Probably that will also contribute to that body of knowledge. But I'm wondering if there has been already studies done for Qatar or the peninsula. Impact of climate change on the groundwater availability.
Yeah, so there were some studies actually. I mean, NASA is going to be a very global to get global scanning, but there are some analysis using actually drones to kind of monitor the aquifer and to see the depletion of the aquifer, as well as there's a lot of studies actually looking into beside the depletion of the aquifer, the quality of the groundwater. And so we are actually monitoring actually the level of the sulfur content, either the southern part and the northern part of Qatar due to the agriculture use and the abstraction. So there are multiple small projects that's actually been conducted within Qatar, but hopefully with NASA that will actually be a very informative information that we're going to get from the holistic mapping of the aquifer, as well as there is Kahrama is doing some aquifer that's actually that's for storage of the groundwater, not the groundwater, the desalinated water, stored for the use if there is any stoppage on the desalination processes.
Does anyone have any other questions?
Thank you for the fascinating presentation. It was very interesting. When you showed the criteria for treated wastewater, I saw mainly things that deal with human health. Do you also have criteria to set the water so it will be suitable for agriculture, like salinity, sodium, etc.?
Yes. We saw the water quality parameters, and as we mentioned that some of the criteria for agriculture, of course, first of all, the groundwater, we want to minimize the utilization of groundwater for agriculture because it's a very important resource, because depletion is impacting actually the seawater intrusion, and that's impacting the aquifer in Qatar. But as part of the quality, it's very important actually to control the boron concentration as well as the sulfur concentration, because this is very impactful on the quality of the water for agriculture use.
Okay. Any more questions? Anyone? Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We'd like to thank you all for coming today, and we wish you a great day ahead. Thank you.